Hi, everyone. This is the Movie Night Society, and we're talking about the Rocky movies still. We're talking Rocky 5 today, which this is, I would say, the most polarizing Rocky
Easily.
film
Yeah.
out of the Rocky series. Um, I was actually just watching an interview. Uh, it's like an old interview from like 2008 with Stallone and Jonathan Ross, I think. And Jonathan Ross asked him, like, rate all the Rocky films, and he rated Rocky Five. Stallone rated Rocky Five a 0.
What? Yeah, I know that Stallone isn't like too big a fan of Rocky Five these days,
Yeah,
or even back then. I don't know how he feels about it now, but
well, I don't know how to start off this review because I mean, should we say what we thought about it, or should we talk about just real quick like what it's about?
let's
Or
do that. We'll kind of discuss the movie like we
okay,
usually do, and kind of give our thoughts, like
okay,
either during or after, just
that
whatever
sounds good.
feels natural, I suppose. But yeah, we'll get dive a little bit into the plot of the movie. That sounds good.
Okay, okay, yeah. Spoilers ahead. We're gonna spoil the whole movie. We always do. Uh, okay, so Rocky Five picks up like immediately after Rocky 4. Rocky has like just been in the fight with Drago, and he's like in the showers. We see Rocky's ass.
Rocky fan service.
Yeah, right.
For all
Apparently, yeah.
Rocky fan
Uh, but then,
service.
but then he, like, Duke is outside of the shower talking to him, and excited that he won the fight and that he beat Drago. And then Stallone just, well, or Rocky, sorry, he calls out to Duke to get Adrian, and something's like clearly wrong. And I thought this scene was really good, where Rocky is just like so beaten by the fight. He's like shaking. He's like, my hand, like, it won't stop shaking. He just wants to go home. Uh, and it's like a clear sign to Adrian that like he should retire. They get back to America, and for some reason, Rocky's kid has aged like five
Yeah,
years or something.
I
It's really
noticed that
strange.
when I first watched it, I was like, "Wait a minute! I don't remember him being that old at the end of Rocky Four. How long was he in Russia for?"
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's
that
like
was
so
yeah.
weird.
When I watched that first, I was like, I was very jarring because it was very noticeable because I had just watched Rocky Four and then pretty much went right into Rocky Five. And if you go, especially back to back with them, it's like he seems a bit older now.
Yeah, and we'll say that uh, the kid, Rocky Jr., is played by Stallone's real son, Sage Stallone, who unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago. Um, I know that was like really. I mean, it had to have been devastating for Stallone. It's like kind of sad to watch this movie with that perspective on it. Um, I'll say though, I thought like Sage Stallone did a pretty good job in this movie, like performance wise.
Yeah, I think he
I
was
thought he was
fine.
pretty good.
Yeah, I thought he was fine.
Yeah.
What were
But
there
yeah, it's
people saying like
definitely
that he was just bad in it? I'm sure there probably were some people.
no, not that I've heard.
Okay.
Uh, but usually like kid performances are not always the best, you
Yeah.
know.
I thought he did fine. He did a fine
Yeah.
job in this. Him and
Uh,
Stallone had good chemistry, obviously, because it's his actual son.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
it adds a lot to the movie for me. Um, but writing wise, we'll kind of get into some of the stuff that happens. Uh, so yeah, the son has like aged. He's basically like, I don't know, how old would you say he is? Like 12,
He looked
probably.
like 12,
Yeah,
12-ish, maybe 13, but I think probably more 12. Doesn't look like he's hit puberty quite yet.
yeah. It doesn't look like he's in like high school. Like they go
Yeah.
to he goes to school later,
Yeah,
and it
I would
seems
think
like a
like
middle
12.
school. Yeah,
Yeah. Like probably sixth grade around there. That would have been my guess.
yeah. Uh, and then I'm just remembering something that happens later. But so there's like a press conference when Rocky returns from Russia, uh, and basically Adrian kind of announces that Rocky is retiring, but Rocky doesn't say or like add anything to it.
Isn't Rocky
Uh,
retiring like always like the last four films? It's been like he's retiring for real this time. No, for real
yeah,
this
pretty
time.
much.
For
Yeah,
real this time.
that's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that. He's like retired in every movie.
Pretty much like every movie is kind of like I'm retiring. Well, for real this guy. For real this time.
But this time it is kind of for real. There's no point where Rocky actually fights anyone in the ring. Um, uh,
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
yeah, and then basically, there's this guy, this like promoter guy, boxing promoter. I forgot the guy's name. It was like Duke. It wasn't Duke.
George Washington Duke. Yeah, actually, his last name is Duke. So there's like two
Oh, was it?
Dukes. Yeah, George Washington Duke.
Wait, that's weird. Because
Yeah.
like Duke is Apollo's trainer.
Yes, there's two Dukes. I don't know why they gave like another character with the name Duke.
That's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. Okay. I'm like
Yeah.
just realizing that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why, but
all right. I don't know. I guess
just
Stallone
what it is.
just forgot.
I guess. I don't know. That's probably like the most realistic possibility.
It's kind of a shame too, because like Duke, the actual Duke, the Duke that's been in the last four movies, and he's in the beginning of this one.
Yeah.
He's really
like
only in that one scene in the beginning, and I kind of wish he was in more of it.
Yep.
I don't know why he isn't.
I don't know.
Because you'd think like he would be able to help out with the situation that they get in. Let's just get into this. So after this, George Washington Duke kind of like tries to go like Rocky to be, for him to promote Rocky and stuff, but like he's clearly like charlatan, kind of.
I kind of love how over the top his performance is too.
Yeah, it's a fun character. I'll say that. He's like a little obnoxious, but he's like supposed to be.
Yeah. He feels more like he belongs though in Rocky 3 or 4 with how over the top he is.
Yeah, definitely.
But I didn't mind it.
And this film, it definitely overall tries to like get to that grounded level of like just like especially the first two movies, but there are definitely some over the top things in this movie, and some of the writing like definitely okay, my biggest problem with the movie, it basically happens right after this, is that Paulie just did something. He like signed power of attorney over to like their banker somehow, and they lose all their money basically.
Yeah.
And it forces them to move back into kind of like where they were in the first movie in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean you could tell that that's what they wanted to do with the character and everything, is kind of get him back on the streets, but the process in which they did it feels very contrived.
Very contrived. Yeah.
Well, it's like okay.
And watching it this time, I don't know if like tell me if this makes sense. Like this is my way I would have done it to get Rocky back into the streets of Philadelphia. Basically, like I mean, at the beginning of this movie, like Rocky's been beaten so bad, he's like, he basically should have been like, okay, I'm gonna retire, and then a few years kind of pass, and like the money runs out, and that's why they have to like move back to the streets of Philadelphia, and that would also explain like why his son is older too. Like it's not just magically older.
Well, it could even like he spends like his money maybe like trying to do something about his brain damage. And,
yeah, that would have been
to, like fight again. That would have made like more sense. Like okay, because people go bankrupt with medical bills. It's not uncommon, unfortunately. So it's like okay, that would have made sense.
Something like that. Paulie doing it is just like so. Like I just hated him after that because it was like,
I know
so
it's
stupid.
It's a shame too because like Rocky 4, he ends like kind of with Paulie's probably like most redeeming moment in like the series of that part. Like if I could step out of me and be someone else, I'd be you. And then now in this one, it's like oh yeah, like I'm pretty much responsible for you losing all your money, but it's not my fault.
Yeah, and it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, how did he sign off power of attorney? I don't know how that works,
I don't.
but it just,
I guess like Adrian let him do it or something. I don't know.
I mean,
I
that
wasn't
just seems
sure because it's
weird. Why
like
would you
how.
trust Polly with like the money though? You
That's a
know what I
good
mean?
question. Polly is not a trustworthy person, so
Yeah.
like I said, it feels very contrived. So
Yeah, my absolutely like my number one problem with the movie. Like that whole idea is just like uh
yeah, it feels like not a lot of thought went into it. Like if they just thought a little bit more, like again with our solutions, like just have him go into debt trying to like fix his brain damage or something else, and just like, oh yeah, Polly did something stupid, let somebody have like power of attorney over their money, and then he lost it. I don't know. It's a very strange way to go about it.
yeah, uh, I just like I was like so frustrated. That's like the one part of the movie that like both times I've seen it, I was just like, huh? Like, are
Yeah,
you kidding me?
that's weird.
Like, yeah. Um, I'll say though, I like the idea of the movie though, to like get Rocky kind of like back to his
Back to his
roots in a
roots.
way.
Yeah,
Not that he like
I like
needed
that
to be
idea.
humbled, but it's just like
No,
a realistic kind of thing, I
yeah,
feel.
I didn't have a problem with that.
And I mean I like the idea of like, what happens when the champ isn't the champ anymore? Like what does he do? I thought like there were some things that were addressed later on that were kind of interesting. Um but yeah, so they moved back to Philadelphia. I mean I guess they're in Philadelphia already, but right? Or
I was never really sure where
I wasn't
their mansion was. I'm thinking
yeah,
it's still in Philadelphia, yeah, but like probably a much nicer neighborhood. Obviously
yeah,
the
that's
one he used to live in, but yeah, I would still think it's in Philadelphia.
yeah, so they moved back to their old place essentially. Um and then the movie kind of just becomes more about like Rocky and his son, and then there's this other kind of he, this guy Tommy Gunn kind of comes in, and he's like essentially kind of like the new Rocky, where he has like this ambition to be like the greatest, and then uh there's some interesting stuff that happens where like Rocky tries to train Tommy, but he's a little bit too like arrogant and a little bit too like eager to like get things moving too quickly. Uh, he hasn't like really like humbled himself like Rocky did, you know. Uh, I liked the addition of this character though; it felt very realistic. Um, and it's kind of like such a good idea that like other movies after this like do it too. Like
Yeah.
Creed 3 basically kind of did the same thing but better. Um,
Mm.
I, I
But
I mean, kind of like you could say like the first Creed is almost like that too. But
well, Rocky like eventually becoming more of a manager or trainer just feels like a very natural evolution for the character too.
yeah,
So that was
definitely.
fun to
I,
see.
I will say like I think looking back, I'm excited. I kind of want to watch the Creed films with you. Like maybe not right after Rocky. Like we're done with Rocky, but maybe. But because like I think the first Creed like holds up a lot better in my mind than this movie. Uh, because I was kind of like the first Creed was sort of like, yeah, it's sort of this idea that seems inevitable, and it's like kind of already done in Rocky Five, but it's done a lot better. There's certain things in this that I don't know. They don't bug me to the point where I don't enjoy this movie. Like, but I don't know the way that Rocky kind of like just starts to ignore his son kind of bothered me. I don't know about you. It kind of felt like something Rocky wouldn't do. Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Like I like that it feels a little bit consistent in a way that like Rocky doesn't seem to notice problems at times until like someone kind of tells him.
Mhm.
Like in 2, it's like he doesn't realize he's spending so much money until like kind of Adrian tells him, or like it becomes very apparent that he's spending too much money. But in this, it just feels like, I don't know. It just feels a little forced. Like I think that's the biggest problem, is like some of these ideas could work, but they're done in ways that like feel too contrived, like you said.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely agree.
um, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if I'm missing any important plot details to this point. I mean, Adrian kind of like gets her job back at the pet shop. Um, I don't know what Polly does. Polly just kind of like is in the bar most of this movie.
I probably not doing anything to help. Let's be honest.
Yeah, which kind of like makes them even more unlikable in this. Uh, and then a lot of it is kind of like George Washington Duke is like calling up Adrian, like saying like, get him back, get Rocky back,
Yeah, he attempts
take
like
him out of
several
retirement.
times to try to kind of coax Rocky into making him do the fight. He will not take no
Yeah,
for an answer.
yeah. Uh, and then yeah, like Rocky starts to train Tommy. Uh, Tommy starts to do like real professional fights, and I like there's a part where well, okay, Tommy basically like he gets too impatient. He's like, when am I gonna get a shot at the title? You know, and then uh Rocky's like, we gotta like wait, we gotta take our time with it. You'll get your shot at some point. And then Tommy just gets like so kind of impatient that he goes to George Washington Duke and makes a deal with him, and starts to just like really forget his own roots of like, Rocky's the one who trained him. Uh and I liked that. It was like kind of, again, it felt realistic. It's like, okay, I could see that happening. Tommy
Yeah, because
is
Tommy's
just like,
young. He wants
yeah,
to prove
he's
himself. You can tell, like that's kind of what his goal is. As soon as he like gets in the gym and gets after Rocky for training in the first place, he's got to prove himself, and he gets frustrated that he doesn't feel like he's going to be able to do that, staying under Rocky's wing. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go to someone who will like finally give me my shot. And obviously, it's like a shame because I like the dynamic and the relationship that they had at that
yeah,
point. It's like it felt very natural, very fun. Like, oh yeah, I could see these two getting along. And then watching Rocky train Tommy, it's like hey, Rocky's like pretty good as a manager. Like he tries to be very much like Paulie. Like he says like the same things that Paulie says and stuff like that. Because obviously that's who I would think he'd base his managing style after. Because like Mickey is very influential to him. Oh, and you know what? Just like talking about Mickey, I don't want to like skip over this. This was probably like my
oh
favorite scene in the movie
yeah,
is like when Rocky kind of ends up back on the streets. Like he even puts like the outfit on from like one back on, and he goes into the old gym, Mick's old gym, and then we get that flashback scene with him and Mick saying, like you're the reason I'm pretty much not dead. It's because I got something to live for with you. Gives him like his
yeah,
little boxing medallion thing necklace, and really heartwarming, great scene between Rocky and Mickey. So I really like that scene a lot. That's probably my favorite scene in the movie. Burgess Meredith was fantastic in that, especially since it felt like they didn't really mention Mickey a lot in Rocky Four. He was just kind of like, of course, he dies in three, but I don't remember him being mentioned even in Rocky Four. Was he?
I don't think so. Maybe in like the recut. I don't remember
Yeah,
though.
I don't remember. Like he just didn't. His presence wasn't there, so it's like I think since they were planning to end it with this one, they kind of wanted to give us like kind of one more scene with Mickey.
Yeah, that was definitely my favorite scene too. Just like kind of like choked me up. It was really well
Yeah,
done.
it's a really emotional, good scene.
Yeah, that's like that's the thing. It's like this movie has like some pretty good stuff in it.
Yeah. That definitely being one of them.
Yeah, I wanted to mention too that Tommy Gunn in this movie is played by Tommy Morrison, who is a real life professional boxer, and he unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago as well. Pretty young, like 44.
Yeah, learning his story is pretty tragic. It almost kind of like mirrors what happens with his character a bit in the movie.
Oh, really? I didn't like read too much about it.
From what I've gathered is like he also got into like a relationship and kind of got used by toxic women. He got a lot of his money taken and stuff like that. So he just like let other people kind of steer him down a bad path, is what I was able to read.
That's interesting.
It's like, wow, dang, his life almost mirrors the movie a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because one of the things that happened, like, I mean, that Rocky kind of says to his son in the movie is like, don't, be careful of like deception and deceit.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what happened to him in real life.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, the more you read it, it's pretty sad. It is pretty sad.
It's pretty like it's crazy too that like I mean Sage Stallone passed away in 2012, and Tommy Morrison passed away like the year after. So I don't know.
Yeah, and both fairly young.
Not cursed or whatever.
I think I've heard some people say it's like this movie's kind of like cursed because both of the like young actors who were in this movie have passed away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really believe that, but like that's
yeah, of course not.
It really is like interesting. Yeah, both so young too. I mean, like Sage was like 36, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to be a bummer here. I just wanted to mention that because I think Tommy Morrison does a really good job in this movie, and I like the kind of. I wish there was maybe a little bit more redemption to this character, though. It doesn't really have any kind of redemption for him, which like maybe
because when he
is more realistic, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pretty sad to see. I thought for sure it's like he's gonna get caught up and used by Duke, and he gets coaxed into fighting Rocky and everything, and then you think he might have like some kind of redemption at the end or something, and it just doesn't happen. He just kind of betrays Rocky. Really, he gets manipulated and betrays Rocky, and we don't really get any redemption for the character. I kind of felt like very mixed about that because it just like the way it happens, it feels like it happens kind of suddenly, and then like he just straight up almost becomes like a villain at that point.
Yeah, I wish he was less of a villain by the end or something. But I mean, I don't know. We'll get to the fight at the end, but I think the movie felt like it needed to have a fight. And every Rocky movie like kind of ends right at the end of the fight, except Rocky 3, I guess. But like, yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe. I mean, watching the interview with Stallone where he was like rating the Rocky films. I didn't watch the whole interview. I just like skipped to the part where he was rating them. But he said like he basically just kind of was like checked out and not really present, I could kind of believe that. I mean, he only wrote the movie, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't have quite the same heart. I think that's the problem with like Tommy not kind of being redeemed. Like other characters, other like villains, like weren't really redeemed totally. Like Clubber Lang wasn't really redeemed, but he wasn't like a personal part in Rocky's life, so it felt different. Like Apollo being redeemed really worked. Ivan even got like a little bit of like kind of a redemption, not redemption, but just like he starts to fight for himself instead of
it's like, a little bit. He gets something.
Yeah. So it kind of sucks that like Tommy doesn't get that in this movie. Well, let's talk about just some of the stuff that happens with Rocky Jr. He gets picked on at school. because people kind of, the kids kind of feel like Rocky's like washed out and everything, so they kind of like make fun of Rocky Jr. for that. He gets like his jacket stolen. He like befriends this girl, and they start to like hang out with each other. But like Rocky Jr. just like really wants to like beat up the bullies. And I don't know how I feel about this like message in the movie, because the message of the movie kind of feels like violence is the answer, sort of, in a way. Like it kind of comes across like that way, but I also get it. It's like more of like, he should defend himself, kind of. But I don't know. It's very weird, because like the way the street fight is at the end of the movie, it just kind of feels like, well, Rocky just like solved the problem by beating up the villain. It's kind of
Violence is
weird.
the answer.
Yeah, it really does kind of come across that way, but I don't know. I'm a little more mixed on that aspect than I've heard some other people kind of say. Because like reading some just comments and stuff, like people like really seem to like hate this movie. Um,
Yeah, I can see
I don't
why
know.
people wouldn't like it, but from what I've
I didn't.
heard, like the hate it gets, I think is a bit unwarranted. I mean, I could understand being in that mindset if you thought this was like the last movie and it would feel like a pretty unsatisfying conclusion. So I could see like at the time this came out, people being like kind of dissatisfied with it as a finale, so they kind of have like some resentment towards it. It's a little bit easier now knowing like it's not the last movie. It's not. This isn't where Rocky ends. So I think it's probably
Yeah,
won't get as much hate towards like newcomers. But I could see at the time why people would feel very sour about it and probably like say worse things about it than kind of like what it really was. Because that seems to happen with other stuff. Like Spider-Man 3 immediately comes to mind, where it's like, well, that's the end. Like, this is the like last Spider-Man movie and everything, and doesn't have like this satisfying conclusion or something, and let a lot of people down. And it was like a lot of people kind of hated it for a long time, but then like after more years pass and we got more movies and everything, it's like it doesn't seem to be getting as much hate now. So it just seems like to happen with stuff, and I think that's probably what happened with Rocky Five.
yeah, I could definitely see like this being pretty hated when it initially came out. Um, and yeah, I could still like understand people not liking the movie. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess like possibly too, just like hearing so many people say like that, like this is the worst Rocky movie, which I guess it is. We'll kind
Yeah,
of get into that, but
yeah.
it's
I don't think
like,
it's a bad. I don't think it's a bad movie though.
yeah, I don't think it is
Like
either.
I
It's
enjoyed
definitely
it.
like,
I watched it twice now, and I enjoyed it both times. It has its
yeah,
flaws for sure, like the things we discussed. A lot of contrived stuff. A lot of things that just it's like I see what they were going here, but doesn't have like a satisfying payoff. But there's like some really good stuff about it too. I don't. I would think if you like the other ones, you'd probably at least like things about this one to the point where you wouldn't
yeah,
hate it. Maybe it's like, I'm not like a fan of it, or it's like, well, I like it, but it's my least favorite. But I just don't see why people would hate it.
yeah. I definitely don't hate it. There's too many fun moments in it, and like actually pretty good moments too. Like I don't know. I mean, like that scene with Mickey is like great. Um, I guess we might as well get into like just like the last scene of the movie. I mean, like the street fight, because I don't know how much else there is to talk about, like major plot wise,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So, I mean, basically, Tommy like fights the champion, uh, who is not Rocky at this point, because Rocky's obviously retired, and he beats him pretty easily. And everyone at the press conference is like, like basically saying that Tommy didn't deserve it, because the champion that he beat was kind of like they call him like a paper champion,
Mm-hmm.
which basically kind of means like they were kind of like made the champion I don't know, not like falsely, I guess, but just like not in the same way as like beating your way to the top, I guess. Uh, I didn't like totally understand it, but like I got it enough. And then Tommy's like, like, no, I'm the real champion. Like I could beat anyone. And then Duke basically uses this as a way to like get Rocky to fight.
Yeah, he manipulates Tommy without a doubt.
Yeah, which this is like kind of another thing that I don't know how I feel about either. Is that like Rocky, Tommy and like Duke like go to Philadelphia, like they're at the bar that like Rocky is at, and kind of like goading him, basically like it's like a western. It's like like the
Kinda,
bad
yeah.
guys are outside,
Yeah.
like being like, "What are you, chicken? Like you're gonna like stay in the bar?" I think he does even call him like chicken or cowardly or yellow or something like that.
Said, listen, Tommy, no
It's
one
like
calls me chicken. No one.
yeah, it's just suddenly Back to the Future 2 and 3 for some
Yeah.
reason. But then like okay, Tommy punches out Paulie,
Which
which
it
is
felt
like
kind of deserved. Not gonna
it
lie.
kind of
Like,
felt deserved, but
Paulie's
like
had that
also
coming.
like between like Tommy and Paulie, it's like nothing really happened with them before. It's
Yeah.
like in a way, like Paulie didn't really deserve it. But it's like, okay, yeah, that's for getting us into debt, idiot.
Pretty much. And
And
just
then
everything else across 5 movies.
yeah, and then Rocky says like, like, oh, let's take this outside, and they fight. Rocky like beats Tommy pretty easily at first, but then Tommy like after Rocky like is walking away, like thinking he won, like Tommy like punches him in the back, and it's like a total cheap shot. And then they like Tommy kind of beats Rocky up, and then they have like a third round, and then like Rocky obviously beats Tommy, and then the movie kind of just ends, right? Like if I'm
Yeah,
remembering right.
it pretty much ends after that.
Yeah.
Well, I do like the part where it's like he goes up to Duke and Duke's like, touch me, I'll sue. And then of course, like we see Rocky just kind of uppercut Duke almost onto like a car hood. It's like,
yeah,
that was obviously satisfying.
Yeah, he's just like, sue me for what?
Yeah, I have to admit, I do like that moment because it's like that dude was just begging for it this whole movie. So
yeah, just like from the first moment he's in the movie, you're like, this guy sucks.
Someone just needs to.
I mean, it's a fun character though. But like you're like, yeah, this guy's gonna need to like eat shit somehow. But yeah, it's like Tommy doesn't get any redemption. He like basically like the police come and like it seems like they're like arresting him. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like weird.
He does kind of like assault, I guess, some people. So
that's, I mean, totally. Yeah, it's just like it's so weird. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's like how many like street fights, and I mean, I guess it was televised too, because like a camera crew.
The camera guy was like really like, oh man, like I think at like one point, like when Tommy and Rocky like take it to the street, it's like you see the camera guy kind of like, oh man, I gotta get this, man.
Yeah, and it's so weird because like Duke's like entire goal is to get Rocky back in the ring, but it's like he brought a camera along with them and they're filming this like street fight. Did he like know a street fight was going to happen, or just like
I don't think so.
It's just like kind of weird. Like I don't know.
I agree.
And like what network was that being broadcast on?
Oh, you think the movie cares about those type of details?
I mean, it should. I mean, I don't know. It was just very, very weird. But the street fight is admittedly kind of fun. Like it's always like weirdly fun to see Rocky box. Like that's the whole premise of the series.
It was so interesting to see this movie decide to end like on a street fight though, and like okay, this is like
Yeah,
Rocky obviously always ends with like a boxing match because he's got the brain damage, he can't box. So it's like, well, we got to have Rocky in some type of fight at the end. We can't let a Rocky movie go by and have him not fight. So he'll get
yeah, but
into a
it's also
street fight
just like
instead.
I have to say I would have kind of like loved this movie if it just didn't have any fighting in it. You know, like with Rocky.
Yeah, it would have been fine.
Yeah, I didn't need
Yeah, well, I
like
think this. I'm sure they thought like, oh, well, it's a Rocky movie, it's got to have it. But yeah, it didn't.
yeah.
It didn't. But they seem to think it did.
There was a funny part in the interview I was watching with Stallone where he was like saying that like Rocky 5 like kind of sucked, so I wanted to do Rocky Balboa, and they like that would be the end of it. And Jonathan Ross like asked him like, "Oh, really? Like that's going to be the end of it?" Because this was like 2008, only a couple years after
Okay,
the movie came
so
out.
before Creed.
Yeah, and he was like, "Yeah." So like, yeah, he asked Stallone like, "Oh, really? That's it?" And someone's like, "Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, what else am I gonna fight? Arthritis?" I thought that was funny. um, I don't know how old Stallone is in Rocky Balboa, but I guess we'll get to that. But yeah, it's like I don't know. It's this movie's like weirdly entertaining, even when it's kind of bad. Like I don't know if I think the street fight is good or bad because it's like it doesn't feel like it's totally in line with like the character and
Mhm.
you know
Yeah, there's no build up obviously to it either. It just kind
yeah
of like
it's
happens where like all the other movies there's always like this big build up to the final boxing match in the movie.
yeah
So
it
this
just
doesn't have
happens.
that. Yeah, it just kind of happens. So it's like it just like happens. You're like, okay, that happened.
I mean, like I guess it would have been weird if Rocky went back into the boxing ring though,
Yeah, I mean, I
but
get the decision for
I mean
that, but still, it's just like it's different, and especially as like kind of your send off movie.
yeah. Uh, and I have to say too, some of the editing in this like fight is so weird. Whenever it like cuts to Rocky Jr., the camera just like shakes in this really weird way. I don't know if it's just like my like copy of the movie or something. Did it do this? Like it almost looks like do you know those like content aware scale like videos where like it kind of like
Mhm.
starts to shake and like
Yeah,
vibrate? It's like I don't know, it looks so weird. I there's something about it that just like makes me laugh because it looks unintentionally like kind of hilarious to me. I don't know. It's just so weird to me. Um, with like Rocky Jr. just like yelling out for like his dad to like beat up this guy.
he stole my
Uh,
room. Beat him up.
yeah, yeah, that was
He actually
another
says that.
weird
He's like,
thing
he
too.
stole my room.
Yeah, he like kicks like Rocky like kicks his own son out of his room for like Tommy to stay in.
Yeah, no wonder son's pissed at him.
Yeah, it's what the hell. Uh, okay, I did want to mention there was a funny scene early on when they're still at the mansion and like Rocky comes into like his son's room and finds like a drawing that like Rocky Jr. has made of like his French like teacher like with her like tits out. It's
That's
like
fun.
I
It's
don't know
kind of
why
funny.
it was so funny to me. Like
It's
and
like,
then
well, we won't
like
show this to your
Rocky's like
mom.
yeah.
Like, yeah, she looks French.
Yeah. It was a really funny scene.
Yeah.
But I can't show it here. I like almost wanted to use it as like the background here because it was so funny to me. But like, there's like I paused the movie and I took a screenshot and like I sent it to some friends because it looks like a drawing that Dennis would make in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
So it was like it's a Philadelphia connection there, I guess. But I don't know. It's just funny. But then, like the shot I paused it on, there's like a poster of Apollo behind Rocky, and the way that like Apollo is like facing in that poster is like right facing right at the picture that like of the French teacher that he drew. And it looks like he's like staring right at her. It's so funny. I don't know. Like, it's so like unintentionally funny. Uh, but I don't know. That made me laugh. Like some of Rocky's just like lines made me laugh. Like when Tommy and Duke get to the bar at the end, and like Rocky's like gonna walk out, and like some of the other guys in the bar are like, "Hey, Rocky, you need some help?" And Rocky just goes like, "No, guys, this ain't no pie eating contest." I thought that was funny. Uh, yeah. So I don't know. Have we like not touched upon stuff or?
We've covered pretty much most of the stuff.
Oh, I do want to say there was a good part with Rocky and Adrian after like Tommy goes off with Duke, and uh Rocky and Adrian are like, fighting about it, and Rocky Rocky basically says that, like, when Tommy was winning, I was winning. I thought that was like, I don't know, I liked that. I wish that the movie, I don't know, did more with that or something, like the whole idea of like him not being the champ anymore, I felt was like sadly underutilized. I feel like the big problem with the movie is like there's too many things going on in the movie. There's like the stuff going on with the son, and then like there's the stuff going on with Tommy, and then there's like Duke pressuring like Rocky to like go back in, and Rocky like is retired and in debt, and like Paulie's an idiot, and like Adrian's just trying to keep everything together. It's just like a bit too much. I don't know. It doesn't feel focused.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like the
Yeah.
biggest problem with it. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think of the music? Because the music's very different in this one. It's more hip hop and funk,
The
as
music
opposed to
didn't
the
really
other movies.
the music didn't really stand out to me in this one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't find any of it terribly memorable. But that's also like I'm more into rock than like hip hop and funk.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like a lot of hip hop and funk, and nothing like really, yeah, stood out to me in this. I think that MC Hammer did a couple of songs for the movie,
Huh?
or
Okay.
at least maybe not wrote them for the movie, but like they're in the movie, I think. Um, so I don't know. It's yeah, it's definitely like a departure from the last two movies, which makes sense at least, given like just going back to, you know, a different location or an old location. Um, that could have been something else too, because it's like it's 15 years after the first movie, basically. They could have talked about, how things are different, or how things like really just like aren't different, or I don't know. There's so many interesting avenues that this movie could have gone in, or like talked about, and it just doesn't really address certain things. Um, or as much as I would have liked it to. Um, so I don't know. It's a very mixed movie, but I can't say I hate it. Like
Yeah.
there's still a level of enjoyment in it, and there again, there's some really good scenes. Like that scene with Mickey was just like so good. Um,
Yeah. Still my
and
favorite scene
I
in the
still
movie.
like. It's still hard not to like Rocky just as a character, and like I think his son does a good job in this movie. Like all the performances in this movie are still good. I didn't feel like anyone was like gave a bad performance in this movie. Um, I mean, I know Stallone said he was like checked out or whatever, but I think he's still good in the movie.
Yeah.
I think he still does a good job. So, yeah, I don't know. You have anything else to say specifically about the movie, or like
No, not really. I think
scenes?
we've pretty much covered most of the stuff, all my thoughts.
Yeah, and I've basically said my thoughts. I mean, like, what do you? Should we rate it? I guess. I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah, why not?
yeah, um, yeah. I just gave my thoughts, so I'll rate it. I'm gonna give it a 2.5, because I feel like I still enjoy the movie enough to like rewatch it, and it's it's definitely got some points where I'm like, oh yeah, this is like this is pretty bad. But I just don't feel like it's, I don't know. In some parts it's definitely like, okay, it's not even like average. There's some points in it that are like just bad, but I think there's enough good stuff in it that it at least keeps it like right in the middle for me.
Mm.
So I'm gonna go 2.5.
Okay, not to seem like I'm copying, but I'm also gonna give it a 2.5.
Okay,
Because
yeah,
I think there's kind of a balance there. If there's stuff that's really good in the movie, but there's stuff that's really bad, and it just kind of balances out into like an average movie for me overall. Um,
yeah,
'Cause, yeah, there's a lot of scenes I really enjoy. I loved the mixed scenes. I like a lot of the scenes with Rocky and his son, and there's plenty of like good stuff. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of contrived things and stupid things and some weird things that they did like with the like last third of the movie that definitely keep it down. And I do think it's probably the worst Rocky movie, but I still could watch this movie and enjoy it, especially like if I watched all the other ones, like I wouldn't feel inclined to just skip Rocky 5. I'm sure there's people that do that. But it's like, hey, if I watch Rocky 4, like 1 through 4, like I might as well watch 5. I don't hate it enough to just skip it. So yeah, I think it's fine. I think it just kind of balances out to average in the end for me. Um, yeah, I don't think it's terrible.
yeah. I don't either, and I'll say I think the last time I marathoned the Rocky films, I actually liked this movie more than Creed, which I kind of can't believe. But I think it was more just because it's like, oh, I found this one a little more entertaining than Creed. Like I found Creed like, I don't know, a little boring, I guess, or just like not quite as interesting. Because I love like a good like masterpiece movie, and this is definitely like, I feel like no matter what is happening in this movie, there's always something interesting about it. Like something bad is happening, or like something like actually pretty good is being told, or it never feels boring to me. Um, but I'll say that I definitely want to watch Creed again because this time I didn't like Rocky 5 quite as much. Um, and my rating's still the same. Like I gave it a 2.5, but yeah, it was definitely more like the good parts stood out a little bit more to me, and like the bad parts stood out more to me. Like, so it still balances out, but I'm not. It was a little more frustrating. Again,
Mm,
maybe it was because the first time I saw it, it was like I heard this was like one of the worst things ever. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like one of the worst sequels ever, like the worst Rocky movie. Which, yeah, I totally agree. It's the worst Rocky movie now, but I still don't hate it. So yeah, two and a half. Um, and we're almost done with Rocky. At least just the main
Yep, one
Rocky series.
one more Rocky movie to go. Main ones, of course.
Yeah,
Rocky Balboa.
yeah, Rocky Balboa, which was like 15 years after this one, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, and I remember liking it. Um, I've seen it a couple times, so this will be it's. I don't know. I'll still enjoy it, I'm sure. Because yeah, I don't know. It's like I think just watching this series again, like all the way through, almost. It's like it's so surprising how entertaining all the movies are. Like again, even this one, the worst Rocky movie, was still entertaining.
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
feel like
I
every
like these
series
movies a
always
lot.
has like, yeah, every series always has like one movie that might be like, oh wow, that one was like really bad. And I'm sure some people feel that way about Rocky 5, but I still enjoyed it. So I don't know. Yeah, that enough with Rocky 5. We're gonna talk about Rocky 6, Rocky Balboa next week, and then we'll decide if we're gonna do Creed or not. I would like to do it because I still feel like it's very, especially the first one. I feel like it's very tied to Rocky, but
Mhm.
we'll see. And yeah, we'll see you next time. I don't know where you can watch Rocky 6. Was it on Netflix or no?
Rocky 6 is the only Rocky movie that's not on Netflix or any streaming site, to my knowledge.
Okay, so you might have to watch it somewhere else if you want to listen to us. But yeah, go check out the movie either way, and we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Peace.